So, there's always that time of the day where we just want to get out of class or work because we're just so hungry. And I mean, that's just natural. It's human nature. So whether it's the first time in the morning or right before lunch, we just want to get out of whatever we're in because we just want food. So now imagine if you had to live through that feeling for several days. So just take a moment. And yeah, I know, it's pretty horrible. So currently, 800 million people are going through that feeling and suffering from world hunger. And out of those 800 million, 60% of those are women. And that fact is pretty horrible because that states that 1 out of every 10 people in this world are suffering from world hunger. And we need to fix this because we need to solve this problem because 10% is 10% too many. Now, this might happen because 1/3 of our total food is wasted, or climate change is affecting the growth of our crops, or poverty is arising in many third world countries. Now, I could go on and on talking about world hunger and everything there is to know about it, but instead, I'm going to focus on a specific way how to end it. And that way is right in front of us. Or actually, it's in front of half of us, and it is the other half of us. I'm talking about women, because they can actually solve world hunger. Because if we empower them in the agricultural world, we can save 100 to 150 million people. That is about 18% of the world hunger population right there. So these facts may seem absurd, but trust me, I will explain to you why with more time, resources, and land, we will be able to help women end world hunger. So, there's still traditional gender norms in sub-Saharan Africa, which are followed by people who live there. In sub-Saharan Africa, men and women are treated different than they are here in the US. For example, in sub-Saharan Africa, women are the last to be fed. They're the last to be done with their chores at home, the last to receive jobs, the last to receive education. And this is horrible because it should be equal. Men and women should be equal. In America here, we are so slowly solving that problem, but in sub-Saharan Africa, that problem still exists. So in sub-Saharan Africa, they believe that men should do the hard physical work, such as farming, while women should be the house moms and take care of everything in the household. So these gender norms, as I stated earlier, are slowly fading away in the US, but they still exist in sub-Saharan Africa. Because on average, women in sub-Saharan Africa have 4.5 children, as well as dedicate 3 to 4 hours a day to fetching water. So they have to take care of their children because their children are not going to get the water for themselves or get the food for themselves. These women need to provide for their kids. And also, they need to cook, clean, and mop the floor, do everything in the household that is required for them to do so. So after this, they have no time at all to farm because they're so weared out at the end of each and every single day that they rely on their sleep in order to get them through the next day. Because they need to get up and do that routine all over again, but they can't even follow their true passion, which is farming. Now, if we get women onto the fields of farming, they can help the responsibility of putting food on the table for their kids. Then also, they will allow men to take care of some chores at home, which also allows some nice father-son bonding time. Women can learn more farming techniques and improve the growth of their crops if they are enabled in the agricultural world. Because if you have both men and women onto the fields, then you have twice the amount of people who are able to grow better crops. So, looking at this, these statistics here, you can see that 15% of the world's extension agents are women. So that shows that there's not a lot of awareness for women there because the rest 85% of men are men. So they really don't care because it's not affecting them. It's only affecting that small 15%. So that is one statistic which can show you how the awareness is not being presented throughout the world. Also, 10% of total aid of agriculture, forestry, and fishing goes towards women farmers, while the rest 90% goes towards males. And to farm, we need the right amount of resources because we want to end world hunger fast and efficiently. Now, a gruesome statistic is that 25,000 people die every single day due to world hunger. And in my mind, that is 25,000 too many, because this totals over to 9 million every single year. And if the more we wait, the larger this number will get, the larger the number of deaths from world hunger will get. So we need to get rid of this number, and we need to act fast and efficient. So if women are able to get the right amount of resources that men do have, then they will increase their productivity yield up to 30%. Now, women are not given the chance to get these resources because a general stereotype is that men are better farmers than women because of the amount of crops they produce. However, this is true because women are not able to get the right amount of resources, the better resources that men have. So with women getting the right amount of resources and the better resources that men have, they will increase their productivity yield up to 20 to 30%, which, as I stated earlier, can provide food for 100 to 150 million people. And that is about 18% of the world hunger population. So in sub-Saharan Africa, women represent 50% of farmers but own less than 20% of land. That is a horrible statistic because that shows that they are unable to afford the right farming land that they tried to get. In the sub-Saharan Africa bar right there, we can see how women only own, actually it's less than 20% of land that they own. And as I said earlier, they represent 50% of the farmers. So naturally, this number should be equal to 50-50, but it is not. So that is one problem we have right there. And another problem is that the land that women do typically own tend to be of less quality. They have less secure rights from the government, meaning that the government can easily take it away from them. And it also has rough terrain, as you can see here, because they have to spend hours and hours of time that men do not have to just to fix their land that they own. And another important statistic that we should all know is that in a country called Cameroon, which is in the sub-Saharan African region, women there own 75% of land, but only own less than 15%. Women represent 75% of farmers in that country, but only own less than 15% of the land there. So that is worse than the statistic I showed you before, because it shows that there is a larger gap between the amount of land they own and the amount of men and women equal to that region. So that number should be equal to 50-50 because that is the ideal number we would like to achieve. Because we want to give both men and women the equal access and the equal chance to do what they like. And another interesting fact is that with more women on the farms, they will have more land, right? And if they have more farming land, they will have a higher income. And women typically spend 90% of their earned income on their families, while men only spend 30 to 40% on their families. So if you have more women on the farms, you will have them get a higher income, which leads to more families and communities thriving due to the amount of earned income that the families receive. So here are two pictures of the world. One is showing the world hunger population throughout the world, and one is showing the gender inequality throughout the world. So in the top picture, we can see that a majority of the countries in that red square representing the sub-Saharan African region have 15% or more of their people undernourished. And even some countries have more than 35% of their population being undernourished. Now, looking at the bottom picture, although some countries there have no data, most of them that do have a bad gender gap. We can see that most of these countries have a gender gap of 0.65 and below. Now, we can see that there is a similar correlation between the gender inequality and the world hunger in the sub-Saharan African region. So if we close that gender gap, that is one way how we can solve the world hunger problem that is occurring in the sub-Saharan African region. And it is important to see the similar correlation between these two main statistics. So to conclude, there are positive effects if women can farm like men. Women play a huge, massive role in ending world hunger because if they are given equal agricultural access, we can save up to 100 to 150 million people. So we have to understand how world hunger is related to gender inequality. And one way to help is go to www.riseagainsthunger.org because there we can raise awareness and donate towards ending world hunger. Now, going back to what I stated before about women being the last to receive food, education, and jobs in sub-Saharan Africa, my family comes from a background of huge gender inequality. So my grandmother grew up in a small village in India, and when she was there as a child, she was punished by her peers for asking to go to school because they all thought it was wrong. So my father saw this, and he saw that my grandmother was being made fun of. She was being punished because she just asked to go to school. So what her father did is that he spoke out. He told the community that his daughter should be able to learn, that his daughter should go to school like all the other boys. So just by one person speaking out, he was able to get my grandmother to be the first person in that village to ever go to a school, the first women to go to that school. So to conclude, I would just like to say that just by speaking out, just that one person speaking out, he was able to make a huge difference because now all those girls in that village are able to go to school. And so by giving donations, choosing to achieve farming equality for men and women, and raising awareness for this cause, we will be one step closer to ending world hunger. Thank you.